In Philippians 4 and verse 13, Paul writes, I am able to do all things by the one who strengthens me. This is Paul summing up the challenges of following Jesus, which he has been describing throughout the letter since the very first chapter. Only if we take this verse out of context and treat it as an isolated claim of Paul, can we use it to justify our own importance and spiritual prowess, leading us to understand Paul as making the claim that in life, especially in the spiritual realm, he was invincible. The English foregrounds the emphatic I can. And this is how many people today read this verse. It leads to a triumphalist form of Christianity, which looks down on ordinary and weaker Christians as somehow inferior. In this type of Christianity, followers are never afraid, never worried, never sick, never confused, and their understanding of God's will is never unsure. They are always doing precisely what God wants them to do, and they feel sorry for other believers who do not share their views. They are successful Christians, and they are not ashamed to announce that loudly. However, as most commentaries point out, to read the verse in this way is to take it right out of context. In fact, that reading is the very opposite of what the verse means. Let us examine the literary context. When we read the whole passage, Philippians 4, 10 to 13, we find Paul reflecting on his Christian journey. He has learned to be satisfied in whatever circumstances he finds himself, whether poverty or wealth, being well-fed or going hungry. Carefully, Paul balances the good times and the bad without emphasizing either one of them. Verse 13 is the conclusion, where Paul clearly indicates his dependence on Jesus, the Jesus who lives within him. He can cope with the struggles and trials he has described, not because of his spiritual abilities, but because of Jesus and his strength. Paul's words are clear. I can do all things in and through him who strengthens me. In the Greek, unlike the English, the I is not emphatic, but simply part of the verb. The Greek makes the one who strengthens him the primary mover in the sentence. Paul needs the strength of Jesus to cope with being poor or being rich, with being well-fed and with being hungry. It is not his own strength that counts. It is the indwelling power of Christ that enables Paul to serve him properly. Moreover, the things which Paul does are not the actions prompted by human desire and ambition, but come from living obediently as a humble servant of Jesus. No one who is familiar with the writings of Paul and his history of trials and struggles could imagine him proclaiming any other way of following Jesus than absolute, humble dependence on him. It is not I who live, but Christ who lives in me, Galatians 2:20. Or, for me to live is Christ, and to die is gain, Philippians 1:21. In conclusion, here in Philippians, Paul is not boasting about the greatness of his faith and spiritual prowess. Instead, he is foregrounding his own weaknesses. He is utterly dependent on the help of Jesus. Such humility is not popular in modern thinking, simply because it moves us right out of the spotlight and into the shadows. Yet across the centuries, this is precisely where the obedient followers of Jesus have been. And these followers are the ones who one day will receive all the credit they deserve when God the Father says to them, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Stretch your